Let us talk about mindfulness. Mindfulness. What a word. What is mindfulness? It's a tricky word because a lot of people would assume that to be mindful is to use your mind a lot. Be mindful, pay attention. And yes, you do pay attention when you're mindful, but not by using your mind. Let us start with an idea. The thoughts that you're having are not you. Let me repeat that. The thoughts that you are having right now, or that you've ever had, or that you will ever have, are not you. When we become conscious of ourselves as human beings, immediately, or at some point as we grow up, we form an image of who we think we are. It is actually just a mental image. It's no more real than a projection on a wall. But over time, we come to believe completely and utterly that that is us. And this image is something that enters the field of consciousness, okay? Like something that you look at, like a tree or a cloud or a bird. You can look at it. You can look at birds and trees and clouds because they are objects in your consciousness, okay? And we do the same thing with this identity, this image of ourselves. It becomes an object in consciousness. But we mistake that object that is nothing more than a thought, a very, in a way, flimsy, very ever-changing even thought, very unstable, very shaky. And we think that that is us. In other words, we think that that is the subject, not the object. And in that way, we turn the truth about who we are, which is eternal, timeless, and unshakable, indestructible, we take it and we turn it into something very fragile, a thought, okay? And the thoughts that you have on a daily basis, they become part of the identity that you've created for yourself, that image in your mind, that thought. And that's when the problem, let's say, arises. Because whatever your mind then tells you, you believe it 100%. Your mind tells you that you are a very important person, and you believe it. Your mind tells you that you are a failure, a nobody, and you believe it. Your mind tells you that you're in danger, and you believe it. Your mind tells you that you need to strive more to achieve what you want to achieve, otherwise you won't be happy, and you believe it. Your mind tells you that this person that you encounter today is an enemy, and you believe it. Your mind tells you that you need to defend yourself, otherwise you will die, and you believe it. And you, over time, act upon and believe things which are actually passing thoughts, illusions. But most of us don't know that. And we go through our entire lives never really realizing that that is happening. We just take for granted the fact that these thoughts are me. This voice in my head is me. Like Descartes said, I think therefore I am. He thought that the ultimate proof of existence was the fact that we think. In other way, he couldn't find anything else outside of his thoughts. But I do wonder, did he ever try not to think and check whether there was something there when thoughts subsided? And you can try it yourselves. It's very difficult. People tell me, I know that myself. I don't need to listen to people telling me that. I know that myself, that quieting the mind is a very difficult thing to do, which is why Alan Watts says, don't try it. The harder you try it, the more difficult it becomes, and that is true. The more you try and do something, the more you try and force it, the more strength you give it. So don't try in the sense of forcing it, in the sense of suppressing your thoughts. But if you ever manage to quieten your mind, and that might happen in situations where you're surrounded by beauty, when you're in nature, when you're watching a sunset, when you're doing an activity that requires your utmost presence, like extreme sports even. That's why some people like that. If you ever find yourself in that situation, go and see for yourself and see what you find, and see if there is something there present when there are no thoughts. So what is mindfulness? Mindfulness is the act of being present right here, right now. Being able to observe everything that is happening, not just outside of me, but inside of me as well, including the thoughts that are arising in my mind. Those very thoughts that I just mentioned earlier, that tell you stories about your life, that tell you what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. Thoughts that we normally just take for granted, we take at face value. So when I am mindful, there's a beautiful breeze blowing in now. I'm up in the mountains, kind of. Pretty much that way you have the so-called Sierra Nevada National Park. So it doesn't get too hot. So when we are mindful, we can see what's happening. But we take a step back from the thoughts. We are not our thoughts anymore. We don't believe them. We don't feel compelled to act upon them, because we see them from a further perspective, from a third person's perspective. It's as if you've been living all your life face against the wall. You've been staring at this wall and you can't see anything else because you're so close up to the wall that everything else is there. But to you, it may as well not exist because you can't see it. You ignore its existence entirely. Okay? And the wall is your thoughts, the veil of your thoughts, your mind. And to you, that's it. That is existence. Another way of putting it could be that your head is inside a box. And there's a whole world outside of it, but you don't know that there is one because all you see is the box. And for a person that has spent their entire existence with their head inside a box, life, the world, everything that exists is the box, the interior space of the box. And then one day, let's say that you take a step back from the wall, if you're the person with the face up against the wall. You take a step back, and there's a space in between you and the wall, and you see more, and there's space, and you can see a bit more. And then you take another step, and another step back, and you can see even more, and the wall starts to become not everything, but just one among many other things. Or let us suppose that you take the box off your head, take the head out of the box, and a whole new world opens up to you. And that box is not your life anymore. So your thoughts are not your life anymore. Your thoughts are not you anymore. And this is mindfulness. So right here, right now, is the time when you can take that step back, further away from the wall, and you can start looking at the wall with different eyes. You can start seeing and feeling the space between you and the wall. And you can start to actually breathe. That must be a giant fly. Either a giant fly or a hornet. Surely not a hornet. That'd be terrifying. Holy sh... What the...